Hi, I'm Diane Lalomia, and today I'm talking about the soft, white stuff. And I'm not talking snow. Soft, white wheat. Wheat berries, that is, are what I'm baking with this week. I'm using recipes from Sue Becker's book and using freshly milled soft white wheat flour. Not only great for pastries, but pasta too. And potatoes from my garden. They're starting to sprout in storage. I'll be baking a pie crust from scratch. With apples, of course. After all, I'm an American. To sift or not to sift? That is the question. And sharing baking tips. And delicious muffins, both from Sue Becker's book. I'll be discussing ingredients I use and why. But let's get started with soft white wheat. It's lower in protein and higher in moisture than hard white wheat. Its gluten isn't strong enough to be used alone when baking bread, but great for many other baked goods. I started with a recipe from this book by Sue Becker. The recipe for soft white wheat pie crust. Her tips tell you to make ice water first. Everything should be cold, including the butter, which was frozen and grated before adding the sifted flour. Here's the bran. The chickens will enjoy that. I used my pastry blender to cut the flour and butter until it resembled little peas or crumbles. Another tip is to pound the sides of your dough so it's thick before you chill it. Keeps the edges from drying while rolling out your dough. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, what about half a dozen? Did you know that apples are mast cell stabilizers and reduce histamines? They're high in quercetin. Hurry up, let's bake that pie. Maybe next time I'll cut the vents in the center. It turned out pretty good. The crust was flaky. Not exactly photogenic, but it tasted really good. My next bake was Morning Glory muffins. I gathered my ingredients all together, but I didn't sift my flour this time. I want the bran in muffins. I don't want all the goodies to sink, so I mixed them dry with the flour first before I add the liquid ingredients. This recipe includes coconut, so I used solid coconut oil. Has that flavor. And it's cheaper too. I baked them 25 degrees lower on the convection setting in my oven, baking both at once. The recipe makes 2 dozen, but notes it can be halved easily. This time the guys at the Bible study with my husband, they got a treat. Sifting flour, at least for me, it's a mess. I lined a sheet tray with parchment paper to sift the flour first before I measured. I'll be needing a floured tray later. I steamed the potatoes on a rack in the Instant Pot along with a cup of water on high for 16 minutes and in a natural release for 15 minutes. Let cool and peel. I have a confession. This is the first time I've made gnocchi and my first time using a potato ricer. Whew, double virgin. A wooden surface absorbs more moisture from the potatoes, which means less flours for a fluffier gnocchi. All I had was my pizza peel. The goal is to make fluffy little clouds of bite-sized mashed potatoes with just enough flour to hold them together when boiled. I sifted the flour a second time along with the salt. I'm using the bench scraper to fold the ingredients together gently. Ultimately, the gnocchi should be light and fluffy. I don't want to develop the gluten in the flour, so I'm trying to be gentle. You can see where the egg ran off the board earlier. What I need is a noodle board, like pasta grannies use. You know, the YouTube channel? I love it. Listen carefully. Can you hear the moisture in the dough? It's still too wet to work with, so I'm preparing to add more flour. Well, I'll let you watch. An amateur at work. Note to self, next time use a dusting of flour, not a dumping of flour. The trick is to avoid developing gluten in the flour and merely incorporate the ingredients, adding just enough flour to make the dough workable when rolling out. The dog just came in from the snow. You can hear my husband in the background telling her to be by the fire. Dry flour cleans up better than wet. It works for getting the excess flour off of your hands too. You'll see me using this trick a few times. Now I'll divide this into 8 pieces for my logs.
Are you?
Getting ready to roll my logs.
And then what?
And then you cut your gnocchi size.
So that's all potato.
And it's flour too, and egg and salt. Mostly potato.
Wow, that's cool. Very That is really cool. I think that might be the coolest.
Next, I cut half-inch pieces, or try, for the gnocchi. Some of my gnocchi are a little too long. Well, they say practice makes perfect. You know, this is fun. It could be addictive. This step is optional. Creating the grooves in the gnocchi. It grabs the sauce really nice. You can leave the gnocchi plain, or you can use a fork to make the grooves, or anything that you can think of. Let's catch that action with a little slow motion. The key is not to smash them. I see a sticky spot on the gnocchi board. It means more flour. Oh, no, not more flour. Don't squash the gnocchi. See, here's the flour tray where I sifted the flour. Now for the gnocchis, flash freeze on the tray for an hour before I bag them up for the freezer. They're real easy to cook later. Just a couple of extra minutes for the frozen versus the fresh. I do mine for 5 minutes. 3 for fresh. Make sure to make room for the tray in your freezer before you mix the dough. You'll be glad you did. Sifting flour for me leaves a mess to clean up. Even my slippers got dusted. A word for the zebras. My vitamin C powder finally came. Just to let you know, I do not receive any compensation for products. I'm just sharing what works for me. You can check out my blog for more information. DianeLalomia.substack.com. The Lone Zebra. More information on cinnamon and why it's more tolerable for zebras. And why and what I substitute in recipes, I go into more detail. Like goat cheese and sheep cheese. They are both A2 milk I can tolerate. Regular cow milk is A1, and it's a trigger for me. Now for pierogies. Again, it's my first time making pierogies, so be nice. I used the recipe from Natasha's Kitchen YouTube channel. Mine came out pretty good for an amateur. First, I made the filling using the potato ricer. Don't try 2 potatoes at once. Ask me how I know. I'd already added the salt and goat cheese into the bowl with the rice potatoes. The grated sheep's cheese is added now. And last, the melted butter. I stir it with a fork to mix everything up first. Eventually, I got my hands in and squished the clumps of soft cheese and potatoes kind of into a mash. You know, like mashed potatoes. Now it's time to make the pierogi dough. And I don't mean this kind. I wish. The recipe calls for 4 cups of correctly measured flour. I wonder if she meant like this.
Wow, that's a lot of flour, huh?
Who needs a mixer? Beat that, lady. I mix one way and then the other. No mixer can do that. I do have both a hand mixer and a stand mixer, but I rarely use them. I like to feel the dough, and this one is very sticky. Let it rest for 15 minutes to hydrate the flour. This is important with any freshly milled flour. I came back to a very sticky dough. Why is it so sticky? I can't work with it like this. Well, wait a minute. Because soft white wheat has a higher moisture content, it needs additional flour, especially if it's sifted. For every 1 cup of flour called for in a recipe, add another 1/4 cup of soft white wheat. So if I have 4 cups in the recipe that uses all-purpose flour, I need 1 more cup of soft white wheat flour in order to get the texture I want. I add the flour in phases. The amount you will need can vary depending on the weather and the humidity in your kitchen. As long as the dough is sticking to my fingers, I need more flour. If it's stuck to the bowl, I use the dough ball to kind of wipe it off. Get all that flour incorporated well. So the dough needs to be dry enough it doesn't stick to the molds I'll be using, especially in the teeth of the mold where the seal is. I keep working the dough, kneading it as I add more flour and test its stickiness. Eventually, the entire cup of flour is added and worked in to make a smooth, elastic dough.
Well, how's it coming?
Good. Time
Okay.
to cover and let it rest. Both me and the dough. I pinch a handful of dough off to roll out on my pastry mat. I like this little rolling pin for jobs like this. I make sure to keep it well floured to avoid sticking. Do you think I have enough flour? But there's always something. It was a little too crowded, but I was trying to keep it all on camera. The dough was thin in spots. You don't have to be perfect when cutting out the circles. Thank goodness. I'm no expert, that's for sure. This one was way too thin and it got rejected. But that's okay, I ended up with extra dough in the end. Now for the filling. The spoon works good for contouring the dough in the mold, and then scooping up the filling, and then using the backside to mash the filling a little, just to spread it evenly in the mold. Then close the mold and tear off the excess dough. It's so easy, a kid could do it. Well, these first pierogies I made needed a little improvement, but I eventually got pretty good. By the way, the spoon worked better than my spring-loaded scooper I tried. On to the floured tray. Floured to keep them from sticking together. I think I went a little overboard with the flour. The recipe makes a full tray. I made quite the mess, but I had a lot of fun. But the pierogies will be delicious tonight, and I'll have more for later. I'm getting better at sifting, and I'm keeping my slippers just a little cleaner. But I can't say that for my apron. Come back next time to see what I'm dishing up and the story behind it. You won't want to miss it. And whether this little birdie got snowed in with all this white stuff. Well, I'll keep the home fires burning while I wait for you to return and join me in my next adventure. In the meantime, stay warm and keep looking it up. And of course, my friends, thanks for watching, and may all your bakes be blessed.